The American presidential election is fast approaching. The U.S. media broadcasts public opinion polls almost every day. But where do these numbers come from? What do they really mean? And how do they influence the public mind? RT is catching up with author David Moore, a man with over a decade of experience as senior editor of Gallop poll, the world's best-known polling organization. Sir, as a veteran pollster, tell us what is the truth behind U.S. opinion polls?
The truth behind the polls is that for the most part, the polls don't want to tell the truth about the American public. There are large numbers of people who are undecided or don't have an opinion or haven't chosen a candidate. But instead of acknowledging that, which is the truth, most polls, virtually all the media polls, simply cover it up.
Why would the U.S. media cover up the truth?
Well, the media aren't covering up polls so much as what they're doing is covering up the notion that there is an undecided public, rather than report the truth that maybe 40 to 60% of the public at any given time is so unengaged they don't have an opinion. The news media polls instead try to manipulate people to come up with an answer so it looks like you've got a fully engaged public. It's part of the the myth of democracy that everybody's engaged. But the truth of democracy is that large numbers of people aren't, and that the media pollsters don't want to show.
Could you call the polls the biggest threat to U.S. democracy?
I think polls are a threat to democracy because they distort public opinion and can give the impression that people support policies which they don't.
How have the polls influenced the current election campaign, and ultimately will they affect the election outcome?
What happened with Hillary Clinton, the polls indicated she had solidified her vote among the Democrats. But as we can see, once the first contest came and Barack Obama won that contest, then suddenly her solid lead evaporated.
What is the most controversial or outrageous realization you've come across throughout this election campaign in terms of public opinion polls?
Most recently, what happened when three major media polls were asking the public whether or not they supported the bailout program. We got wildly different results. Pew Research said that the public supported it by a 27-point margin. The Los Angeles Times Bloomberg poll said they opposed it by a 24-point margin. That's a 51-point swing in opinion. And then to make it interesting, the ABC Washington Post poll said, oh no, it's tied. So here were three polls on a very crucial issue, and they came up with the opposite ends and the middle of the spectrum.
Can we expect any surprises in this upcoming election?
If it did, it would be surprising, and then I would be surprised, and therefore I wouldn't be able to predict it right now.
How much does the United States media really influence the election campaign?
They have a tremendous influence on the way in which candidates are covered. The media, because of the polls, refused to cover the lesser-known Republican candidates and refused to cover the lesser-known Democratic candidates. And by not covering them, then it meant that those candidates couldn't get their campaigns going. They couldn't raise funds, and they couldn't get people to join them. So, yes, the media, relying upon bad polls, essentially determine who the front-runners are, and then in determining the front-runners, they help those front-runners gain money and gain
Hey, is this my turn?